Editor-in-Chief of FANBASE Press, and today, today on behalf of everyone at FANBASE Press, I'm excited and honored to introduce you to the new bilingual comic book series, QUINCE, as well as the incredibly talented creative team behind this series and who brought it to life. For those who may not be familiar, QUINCE is a 15-issue creator-owned comic book series that is currently being released by FANBASE Press on Comixology on the 15th of every month in English and Spanish. The series follows a year in the life of Lupe, a 15-year-old girl who discovers that her quinceañera brings with it a super cool party and also superpowers. Lupe's quince powers only last for as long as she's 15, so over the course of this roller coaster year, we follow the adventures of Lupe as she figures out what it really means to be a hero. Without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the team responsible for QUINCE so that they can share with you their inspirations, their creative process, and what readers can anticipate for the upcoming issues of this series. So first on my left here we have Sebastian Kadlecik, who is the creator of the series and also the creator, writer, and artist of the comic book series Penguins vs. Possums. Hello, Sebastian.
Hello.
Next to Sebastian, we have Kit Steinkellner, who is the writer of QUINCE, as well as one of the writers on Z, The Beginning of Everything. Hello, Kit. And last but certainly not least, we have Emma Steinkellner, who is the artist of QUINCE and also works with Ayzenberg. Hello, Emma. So, Sebastian, as the creator of the series, what was your inspiration for Lupe and the series as a whole?
So there were a couple of specific inspirations for QUINCE. A few years ago, my wife and I attended multiple family quinceañeras, and as I sat through each one of them, I thought, I could not do this when I was 15. God wanted to just disappear when I was 15 years old, and here were these young women who were the center of attention. There was literally nowhere to hide. The night is all about them, and I just thought that was amazing, and it reminded me of like in comic books where characters have this really emotional, high-stakes moment, and that brings about their powers. So I thought that would be the perfect / the worst time possible to get superpowers is when all eyes are on you and the night's all about you. You can't easily slip away. And so it started there, and I really like the idea of centering it in a very specific cultural event. And then a couple weeks later, I was watching my nieces, and they were running around the living room, and they were dressed as superheroes. And I thought that was cool. I love superhero movies, I love comic books, and here are my two little Latina nieces running around dressed as Supergirl and Batgirl. And I thought that was awesome. I thought that's so cool. There's something really universal about superheroes. That's terrific. But then my next thought was, wouldn't it also be awesome if they had more representations of themselves in comic books and on TV, etc. If they had a superhero that looked like them and that also reflected them at home when they take the mask off. And it was at that time that it got very personal, and I felt like it really needed to, it needed to exist and it needed to be made. And so that was the inspiration for QUINCE. And then as far as Lupe goes, I mean, I'm sure Ken and I can talk about this more as well, but at the beginning it was really about her being as like average as possible. I didn't want her to be a super athlete or a super brain or a super really anything super. And that's also part of her being like a middle child. Is she's not the firstborn, she's not the baby, she's kind of somewhere in between and kind of just going through life like a lot of us do as teenagers, where everything's dramatic, but it's also sort of boring, and it's also just sort of the mundane. And there was nothing that made her necessarily stand out. And that's why she was so excited for QUINCE, because it was a night all about her, and she was just really couldn't wait for it to happen. And I guess, yeah, that was the beginning of that, just being and also, I guess I should say this too, also just as flawed as she is, to also be very a positive representation, that she did have a good heart, and I think I was most excited to see her relationship with them, but it all started there.
And we'll be talking in a moment to Kit and Emma as well about how they joined the project. But first, Sebastian, as I mentioned, you are a creator yourself. You have created, written, and illustrated for Penguins vs. Possums for 4 years?
5 years.
5 years. So what inspired you or kind of engaged you to reach out to other creators for this series?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One, this story is so specifically about, about a girl coming of age. And so I felt like since that was such an integral part to the story, and it was so much about that it would be a good idea to have a woman's perspective, a woman's point of view on that, having gone through something similar. And that kind of ties into my next point, which is I think that, particularly for me, it's always about making the project the best that it can be, rather than about, like, hey, I did this and I did that. Like, the most important thing is and because QUINCE is so important to me and so special to me, that it be the best that it can possibly be. And I think the most, adult thing to do is to realize that sometimes that execution happens by reaching out to really talented people and by collaborating with these amazing people to make it the best that it could be, much better than I could have done by myself. So ultimately, it was about the project being the best it could be.
Well, Kit and Emma, how did you come to hear of the project from Sebastian, and what enticed you to join the team?
Yeah, so I had done a little bit of collaboration with Sebastian before. He, when Kit and I worked on our first webcomic, Aces, back when I was in high school, that was maybe like 2010-ish, around that year span. And Sebastian really liked our work on that. And I ended up doing a pinup for Penguins vs. Possums, doing one of those kind of illustrations. And he emailed us, I guess it would have been over 2 years ago now, with the basic pitch for QUINCE. And I think we both fell head over heels.
Oh my gosh, it was Sebastian is tired of me saying this, but it's the best email I've ever received in my life.
I've got a lot of good Blue Mountain e-cards, so I'm not prepared to say that.
I've got some good ones, but man, for me, like in my other life, I work as a TV writer specifically in like that new genre of like half hours that aren't funny. like you said, like I was a staff writer on Z, the Beginning of Everything, which is, a big romantic drama on Amazon about Scott and Zelda Fitzgerald, and the stuff I'm in development for right now is very much like, I guess in the vein of something like Transparent or Fleabag, like it's kind of tiny dramas in a half hour, but like, and it's very well observed, it's slice of life, and I love that stuff, but like I secretly always want to do a big magical coming of age story because I love Buffy, and I love Harry Potter, and I love Spider-Man. I love that stuff so much, and so I so badly want to do it. Just kind of like written it off. I was like, I'm never gonna be a writer on one of those things, and so it really felt like it made my dream come true with this email. It's just been a dream to work on it with these ones and with you, Barbra, our editor.
Well, it's fun to note that this is FANBASE Press's first sister creative team, so we're excited to have both of you working on this. But given that familial connection and the fact that you've worked previously together on Aces, how would you describe your working relationship? Do you have sort of a shorthand with one another now?
I'm always just trying to impress you. I just like every script, I'm like, what will impress Emma and what will not impress Emma? And I put the things in that will impress you, I think, and I hope.
I mean, right now we've worked out a kind of routine where you'll write a script for a chapter, send it to me and Sebastian, and then I go and do my art thing. I'm trying to find like some kind of sister's narrative to graft it on, like Frozen, like you are in your ice castle.
I'm Elsa in my ice castle, and you just want to be let in.
And I just want to get let into the story, and when I am, I'm so happy. But we have a lot of the same tastes.
Yeah.
So, or at least the same amusements and tastes of what would be fun. What's a fun idea for these adventures?
Yeah, and also inside things for you. I'll like make this character like this person we know in real life, but like,
And I'll put in little Easter eggs for you, like in a recent issue that was just released, Lupe saved some dogs from a fire, and they're kids' dogs. So look out for those.
And Sebastian, what can you share with us about seeing your vision for QUINCE brought to life by Kit and Dillon?
Phenomenal. I mean, I'll never forget the first time that the finished pages for the first issue came in. I've never worked like this before either, so it was sort of like something magical was happening. And the pages came in, and I zipped through them. I was so blown away. I was so excited, and I was just, because I wish I'd done 2 years ago, it had been rattling around in my heart and mind for a while before then, and it was just this finally coming to fruition. And I ran into the other room, and I showed my wife on the iPad, and I was like, look at this is so amazing, like it's happening, it's becoming, you know, and it was just, I'll never forget that moment. It was like magic, and continually, I mean, this is an amazing team, and everybody brings so much to it. I'm continually impressed, and I couldn't have hoped for anything more. I'm so excited.
And you're very much still a part of the creative process.
Oh,
What can you
for
tell
sure.
us about your experience working and coordinating with Kit and Dillon on each issue?
It's been awesome. I mean, I guess that's big. Yeah, like Emma was saying, so in the beginning, I did have this sort of, I actually had a little bit, like a little tiny pitch packet that I had because I wanted to do like a TV show, and eventually realized like, I don't know how to get that done. I know how to make a comic book, and then it became like this will be an amazing comic book if I just focus on it as a comic book, and that was crucial as well. And so I had sent this I had sent stuff out like the premise, and I had sent this pitch packet, and I had sent this some prompts for issues and like a general outline thing. And about 3 issues in, Kim and I got together at this coffee shop, and we're like, let's talk about the story. Let's talk about the rest of it. This is another thing I'll never forget because it was so awesome. It was like you just kept saying, like, let's raise the stakes, let's raise the stakes. And it became this awesome brainstorming session, and it really grew and kind of took shape. And we did sort of a larger beats and stuff, and then the nuance is all these guys. The hard work is all these guys. But for each issue, a script will come in. We'll talk about it beforehand. The script will come in, and if I have notes or whatever, we'll discuss them. Or if there's specific things that have been part of what I saw from the beginning, then we'll talk about that. But it's a great dialogue, I think, that the 3 of us have each time a script comes in or pages come in. It's been really rewarding in that sense, and I think they've been great about the inclusion and it being a team. And I remember actually speaking of that, the first convention we were going to do, I wasn't sure there was enough seats, and so I was like, they can go ahead and do it, and I'll sit out. And it was this unanimous, no, it's the 3 of us, it's so I don't know. I just think it's it's really been amazing to be involved this entire time. Oh, and then I guess technically also, I was going to do the letter originally.
I saw that when I checked the initial email.
Yeah, I was like, and she turned it in, and it was already lettered, and I was like, that looks like that.
I will disclose, I don't know why I did that, because lettering is my least favorite.
No, it's so nice because you have a program where she's put her own handwriting into this program. So in the comic, it's the font is your handwriting, which is an Easter egg that I forgot to tell the interviewer earlier when they were asking what Easter eggs were.
If you would like the font that's my handwriting, it's $50. Please give it to me.
And I think we would be remiss if we did not mention Valerie Trenier, who is our translator, because we do have each issue of the comic book series translated into Spanish. Can you talk a little bit about having each issue translated and what that has meant to the improvement of the comic book series?
I think it's been phenomenal. I wish my Spanish were good enough to do that myself. It's not. My wife's is, but she didn't want the pressure. So having a translator and seeing it in Spanish each time she turns it in is another it's wonderful. And my grandma speaks Spanish as well, so I have her be able to read it in Spanish. My wife's mother speaks Spanish, And to have her read the same comic that my niece is reading at the same time, like that really is, for me personally, the most amazing thing, because that was a big part of the inclusion, and to be able to see them experience this story together but differently and connect in that way was amazing. And so for me, just on that personal level, it's been phenomenal. But I think I haven't heard of that happening a lot as far as something being released in English and Spanish at the exact same time on Comixology, and that's something that I know I'm really proud of for this book, and I think it was an important thing to do. I'm glad that FANBASE Press was so instrumental in making that happen and finding a translator. So.
Well, we want to dive deeper into the comic book itself. So, Kit, we're going to talk to you more about your writing process. How would you describe your process of finding Lupe's voice and creating characters who are identifiable, grounded, and realistic?
Yeah, well, I think I've had a little bit of a journey in terms of like how I think the voice, because I grew up on like Dawson's Creek, and like Juno was a very instrumental movie for me, and influential rather, and I think I used to think like every sentence needed to be intensely interesting and like and deeply witty, and I would get dinged a lot for like kind of being hyper stylized, and I was like, well, Joss Whedon and Ken Williamson to do it, why don't I get to do it? Because if someone is famous, they get to do it, and if you're not famous, you don't get to do it yet. Is a good rule of writing thumb. So I wanted to have a voice and hear people having voices, and I wanted that so much. And then at a certain point, there was one TV script that is very much anything that's happened in my TV career has kind of gone back to this particular script that I wrote, and I wasn't trying to do a voice at all. I was just trying, my goal was for it to feel like you were eavesdropping on these characters, that there was just no exposition, that didn't feel stylized at all, but it was just you were just like a ghost in the corner of the room listening to these characters. And that was the script where all of a sudden everyone started talking about my voice, and I would go to these meetings and people would say, oh my God, your voice is so amazing. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Voice is not about trying to sound a certain way, voice is about trying to capture something, and if you are really capturing something honest and authentic, people say you have a voice. So that's when I got across my voice kind of journey about that. And so with regards to QUINCE and Lupe, it's very much the same thing. I'm very much trying to, it sounds a little woo-woo, but kind of like listen to her and listen to the people in the comics and just kind of write them. And it's very much, I mean, look, I think a lot of Lupe is me at that age and now, but I think at that age I was so sad all the time, but also so like deeply hopeful. And I think, I also, in my 20s, I was a high school youth theater teacher, or youth theater director, and I was a substitute teacher, so I've worked with teens a bunch in the past decade, and I've kind of seen the same things in them, just from the outside looking in, as I felt, which is just like, oh God, they're so cranky and like mean and like prickly and weird, and also so romantic and hopeful and sweet. And I think when people, or when sometimes teens get a bad rap for being angsty, and it's there, but I think it's kind of half the puzzle box of what it is to be a teenager. I think there's something, it's just about feeling a lot both ways, feeling a lot negatively, feeling a lot positively. And so, and kind of in creating Lupe, and kind of keeping her grounded, the idea is very much that like she does not want to operate on 2 hours of sleep and never get to eat because she's always so busy listening to the police scanner and like going after, you know, bank robbers and like, you know, stopping arson in its tracks. Like she's tired and she doesn't like being bossed around and having her life kind of spin out of control, and she just wants to go to homecoming and kind of hang out with her friends at lunch. There's something, I think on the one hand there's something so exciting for her about being a superhero, but there's also a lot of practicalities about being a hero that are pain. And it's just, I think it's about always balancing the positive fantasy and the negative fantasy of what it means to be a superhero through the lens of what you want as a teen girl, which is, and also I think I'd be remiss if it's in the classic tradition of, you know, all the classic superheroes, she wears a mask and people don't know who she is, so it's her alter ego getting all this credit. And it's kind of getting it's like her alter ego gets everything she's always wanted. She just gets, you know, attention, and kind of that Lois Lane, Mary Jane Watson tradition, you know, her crush is in love with her alter ego and has no idea that she exists. So kind of playing with all those tropes, which is like, oh great, I'm glad I got everything I wanted, but is it even me who's getting everything I want? Anyway, so it's kind of looking at all that classic superhero stuff through the lens of what I remember being a teenage girl and what I've seen with the teenagers I've worked with for the last decade or so.
And Emma, likewise, I'd love to hear more about your character design process and what went into, or rather what was the most important aspect of creating and designing the world of QUINCE.
Yeah, so QUINCE is very much stylistically in my wheelhouse. We're working with that very lean, clear, defined lines and bright colors. Like, it's a bright world where even though things that are hard happen, it's still that cartoon world where money comes in canvas bags with big dollar signs on them. But it's not,
and also bank robbers wear money masks.
and bank robbers, it's true. But I also want to play with those, like, even though we're living in this bright world, there's a groundedness to it and there's a logic to it. And I think it's the same with like how the characters have a voice that they speak with, a rhetorical voice. They also have a voice with which they style themselves, and the logic of how a character looks based on the role they play. And for me, I can either kind of give into what people would traditionally think someone would look like or how they would express themselves based on the role they play, or I can kind of try to subvert that. And I like to play with both because I think both are valid ways to design a character. For instance, Lupe is a regular girl, and she doesn't necessarily take the time that other people do to put product in her hair that's not going to make it to defrizz it or to groom her eyebrows, and that's just who she is. It doesn't make her any better or cooler than girls who do that, but it doesn't make her worse than them either. And she's a girl of size, and I wanted to make sure that even after she does this huge superhero training summer with her abuela, that's her body. It doesn't nip in anywhere. It doesn't turn into an instant, mid-80s X-Men super babe, impossible figure. That's her body, and that's her body at its fittest. That was really important to me, and I don't think it's something that you see all the time with someone with superpowers. But we've grown to care a lot about Lupe, so the way she is, that's the way we want her to be. And she is real, and I will not have anyone telling me she's fictional.
But we gossip about our fictional character.
So there are places where I like to kind of subvert and play with the tropes of how you think someone's going to be based on the role they play, how you think someone's going to physically look. And then there are times when I think it's totally fine to kind of indulge a trope. Like we have Abuela, she does the granny glasses, she does the gray hair, she wears like a soft pink robe all the time at night, like every grandma does. So I think the balance of giving an audience what they kind of come to expect from a superhero comic or from all the characters and their trappings therein, that's really fun. But it's also really fun to tweak things and give a design that's going to challenge people a little bit more, but can be more rewarding.
So thus far, we have released 9 issues of QUINCE through Comixology. We will be, we'll talk a little bit more about later. We'll be releasing a printed version in October. And this is for anyone on the panel who would like to jump in. Can you give a spoiler-free, or as much as possible, summary of what has happened? What have we learned about Lupe thus far? What challenges has she faced, and where is she at this point in time?
She's a lot. She's been through a lot. So she's, at this point, spoiler, gotten her powers.
Yeah, that's a spoiler.
And she's kind of learning how to use them, and also how she wants to use them, for what purpose she wants to use them. She's had an amazing training montage with her abuela. And she's developed a little bit of a crush at school. Nice.
Sort of like a progressive like video game level quality to the plot, or at least that was the intention, where it's sort of like once she's mastered one thing, we bring in a newer, more complicated, difficult obstacle for her to have to surmount. So there's, she's sort of, I guess she kind of gets a handle on, okay, so there's like a police scanner, as there is in every superhero story, or although one, The Incredibles, but and ours. But I think once she masters kind of like, or gets somewhat of a handle on non-superpowered crime, I think she's starting to realize there is some superpowered crime out there, particularly as kind of a central antagonist that's going to kind of take us into through the end of the story. But it's very much about she just masters one thing. And also very much in her personal life. She's got a handle on, superpowers, and then her family complicates things, and her crush complicates things. So it's always just about kind of learning and progressing. But once she kind of gets a handle on something, you want to throw something new and difficult her way.
Yeah, I was recently in preparation for our print issue that's coming out in October. I was kind of looking at all the covers for all the issues laid out, and I hadn't realized at the time, because I illustrate each cover when I'm finished with illustrating each issue. So I didn't realize that they kind of have a theme when you look at them in a linear spectrum, which is that it starts off in a very pink place, like in a predominantly pink colorway, and then you really slip into some dark tones later, and things don't get too scary, I would say. Kids and teens, you'll be fine to read this, but things do get more complicated and more challenging, and dangers do become greater, stakes do become higher for Lupe. After she's finally getting a handle on her powers, they keep moving the line, and she has more and more windmills to tilt against.
When Sebastian earlier was talking about me saying, let's raise the stakes, which makes me sound like a smarmy studio exec, which I am, basically, just like, I only pretend to be an artist, I'm really just a gross exec. But when I was saying that, I think I also said, like, I want this to actually be life or death, and it kind of is. Like, we really do get to that place where the stakes could not be higher, and I don't know, it's kind of a spoiler, but her life absolutely is in jeopardy, and all hope is lost. There is that panel that, like, and I think it might be a cliffhanger between 13 to 14. Anyway,
The kids and teens, read it.
and I don't think things have to be life or death to be wonderful, but I just really felt like with this story, I wanted to see her push to her absolute limit, and she very much is.
Two important aspects of QUINCE have always been representation and inclusion. As creators, how would you say you approach both of these aspects in the series?
I'll say a quick thing. In that it's so funny because I drove down to Comic-Con with my husband, and Emma drove down with my parents, and we both had the exact same conversation about this. Like the whole the Game of Thrones, like that new show Confederate came up, which is kind of, some people are probably familiar with, like the Tempest regarding that. But basically, just who has the right to tell what story? That's something that you and I, well, and you too, but like you were, I don't know, were you part of the car conversation about that? Me and Emma were. But how it is of paramount importance to both of us that neither one of us think like we should just be able to tell whatever story we want. So we think it's cool. It's really like, are we going to be able to make a contribution as an artist to a story? And so, in QUINCE, this is never a story I would have come up with on my own. And even if I had, I would never have done it because culturally, I wouldn't have been able to just speak to that in the way that I would. I mean, I probably would have wanted to produce it. Like, I would have wanted to kind of go find a writer and an artist. But I think with the storytelling stuff, in the writing, I think Sebastian and I both bring a really key identity element. It really is your culture, and it is my gender. I think those are two key components to who this person is as a character, as where she comes from, and then who she is as a girl. And that's why I feel comfortable writing this story, even if it's even if I don't check off all the boxes with Lupe, I think I check off enough, and you check off enough, and I think we together work as a team to make sure that she, really is fully realized as a character. And I think that's just, and that's why I like working in TV, because it's often staff, and so you really can, as a creator, showrunner, say, okay, well, this is person to me, I know all this stuff, but man, I really need somebody who can speak to these elements of the story, and then you hire that person, they're in the room, and I think I'm just a really big fan of collaboration because of that. I think things are always made better with a few more people. But yeah, that's just to kind of sum it up. I really feel, I think there is a school of thought where it's like anyone can tell any story. I think that is, I strongly disagree with that, because I think that there's, dynamics for good storytelling. I think if you search your soul and feel like you really are supposed to be telling this story, but because you are maybe missing a key identity component to telling the story, I think you've got to partner up. I think if you really value art and great art, and you want to be someone making great art, it's something you kind of spoke about with the gender component of the story. I just think it's you have to want to make your art as great as possible, and that has to be more important than whatever control or ownership you feel like you want on a given project. That's kind of, I don't know, that kind of answered the question. A little bit. Cool. Okay. Done. It's the entire panel. I'm not saying anything else.
Yeah. Great.
Yay!
Don't forget we're sisters. Personally, as an artist, it makes the most sense to me to fill your, drawn world with people of all different sizes and ethnicities and genders and gender expressions and sexualities and styles and mannerisms. I think that makes for the most interesting fictional world. And if a world that we're just creating, if it's just our play space, there aren't any rules. We can build a world that we want and populate it with anyone we want. And I think that is, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I don't think it's pandering to any kind of diversity quotient at all. But I think it makes sense to have all those different points of view in your world. And just speaking to the point that I talked about earlier with character design, I think it really makes sense to use those opportunities to subvert stereotypes. And we have Lupe's crush is a Vietnamese American boy. You don't see that in the school hunk trope a whole lot, but
always see the school hunk.
But it's cute. Pick up your copy of QUINCE and find out.
There's hot Devon and there's other hot Devon. Hot Devon is the guy you're talking about, Vietnamese American, and then other hot Devon is black. But they're both the two hottest boys in school. They're both named Devon.
And their ethnicities don't define them. They have a lot of other character traits, but they're not irrelevant either. They're not just a face. So it's really important.
I agree. I mean, it's all about representation, and I think that it is through us being very respectful and authentic and bringing ourselves, each of ourselves, to it, we get to that place where we all feel like we've done something important. And I think that's what you were talking about as well, just adding to the sort of larger story of things, what can you really bring to this? And I feel like through collaboration, we've respectfully tried to do that.
Well, I definitely want to allow time for questions. Are there any questions from the audience for the creators? Yes.
Yeah, two-part question for Sebastian.
Yeah.
Number one is, how did you originally connect with FANBASE for your first project, and then for this project? How did you pitch the idea of FANBASE? I was interested in the process.
Yeah, sure. So actually for the first project, Penguins vs. Possums,
Right.
We had been self-publishing and just kept seeing FANBASE at the different conventions And after seeing the same familiar faces and just kind of waving to each other from across the way, getting to know each other, and realizing we had similar interests and just connected on a deeper level, we started to have the conversation about joining forces and then publishing our books. So it was really that, just from being around each other so much at so many different conventions and liking each other enough to know that we could do this together and join forces. And that's where that started. And I liked working with them so much. And I had actually promised Kit and Emma, that was one of the main things too. I was like, this will get made, whether it's with FANBASE or it's somewhere else, or I have to fund it myself, it will get made because it's that important to me. And I was like, but I'm going to go to FANBASE first because I think they'd be a great home for it. But I didn't know if it would fit in their roster or what was going on, so nothing was taken for granted. But I went and I pitched it and I said, what do you guys think of this idea? If it's not going to work, it's okay, I'll find another home. And they immediately loved it. So it was, and I think luckily I haven't messed anything up with the previous working relationship, so they were willing to go down this path again. So, but yeah, that was the process.
What's the power of
So Luca she's able to fly, she has telekinesis, she has super strength, and she's a little bit...
She's a little bulletproof. She's not entirely... Like, she has these, like, gnarly bruises all over her body, but technically, nothing.
It's like if someone threw, like a big pebble at you. I think a way we've talked about it is she's basically got the big gamut of all the, like, really good, like, hardy superpowers, but she only has them for a year, so...
And they're also, like, we also liken it to, well, so basically, her powers, like, are exhausting, and they take a lot out of her. And my joke is that, like, I don't think a lot of comic book writers have exercised, because if you've ever done, like, intense physical activity, it's really tiring no matter how strong you are. It's like, you just get tired running a marathon. So part of the fun of this is, like, not that she, like, flies and then she lands and whatever. She flies and she just falls on the ground. It's so exhausting. It is like running a marathon.
But she has whatever powers will make you read it.
Yeah. Do you like freeze breath? She has freeze breath.
Okay.
Wonderful. So growing up actually around this age, I was reading comics, so there's going to be around a lot of So I was sort of like fan side of that. So that's for one thing. On the other hand, I was reading Rico and all that movies like Spanish and comic script. There was really nothing like a superhero, male or female, honestly, that I had access to growing up. So I have a comment and a question. My comment is for Sebastian, how he was like, last unicorn, where were you in the moment? What I need to do. But in celebration of the work that you guys have done, my question both for the team as well as for FANBASE is what has the feedback and response been from the Latino community, especially the leaders of folks who have discovered some of the
I'll start because your story really reminded me of a very personal story. And sorry, my sister's in the audience, sorry. But my mom, when she first saw the press release for it, she was really excited. And I've done many projects, and I'm sure she's liked them all. But this one was special, and it was very clear that it was special to her as well. And so she reached out to me, and she was just like, oh, this is so great. Like, when I was a kid, I had dreams that I could fly, and, but we didn't have anything like this. And she was like, oh, it's so great that you're doing something with our heritage, She was just so excited. And then she said, I wish I had a comic like this when I was young. And that your story reminded me a lot of that. And so really for me, my mom's is kind of the ultimate. And then my nieces read it as well. And that was sort of as I said, they were such an inspiration that to see them read it and love it, and that also is, I can't explain it. It was really fulfilling and really meant something to me. We've also gotten just a lot of really good feedback. I mean, as far as reviews and stuff, they've all been great, and they're all been talking about that, and I'm happy that this does exist, and it was a reaction to, I feel, a very personal thing of Void being there. But of course, in the current climate, people have asked, like, is this a reaction to what's going on right now? I think it's very timely, and I'm glad that it's out right now. I think it's the perfect time for it to do that. But it was, like you were saying, it was due to a larger void of just he's not existing very much, you know. And so it really was about having that representation of, yeah, this superhero can do all those cool things too. Gets a costume, it's fun, you know, etc. So it's been incredibly fulfilling, and I feel like we have gotten really positive feedback kind of across the board, particularly from all the team.
The Mary Sue wrote a review, which I think it was the Mary Sue, which she kind of started with her autobiography and kind of growing up Latina and her, she had kids or not, but she kind of talked about her childhood.
She said she had a sweet 16.
She said, yeah, that's right, she did not. I was like, I don't think she did. She talked about kind of growing up, and then that segued into her review of QUINCE, and it was very positive and wonderful, but it was just, and same with the Comadres podcast, that talked about their QUINCEs, and then they kind of got into reviewing, and that's kind of, those are my favorite reviews where autobiography kind of melts into the review, and they're nice reviews, which is also nice, but it's cool to have it be from such a personal place. It's the best.
I think that's to share also that from FANBASE Press's perspective, being on the lines when perhaps the creators aren't there at conventions. I know at Heidi Ho Comics for Free Comic Book Day this year, it was very shortly after you guys had left. They had been signing copies of QUINCE #1 to be released, but this young woman brought her parents up to the table, and her parents seemed a bit hesitant. They just weren't too much into comic books, but the young woman came over, I explained the premise of the story, gave her a copy, and for Free Comic Book Day, we released an issue that on one side had the English language version, the opposite side had the Spanish version. And so I handed her a copy, explained this, and she immediately handed her parents a copy who only spoke Spanish. And she just thanked me so genuinely and said, "You don't understand, I've been trying to get my parents to read comic books for 20 years." And they were just standing there engrossed by the story, and it was such an amazing feeling to be able to reach so many different people and to make that connection for readers, which is I'm so grateful for as a publisher. So, any other questions? Because I know we'll have to wrap up soon. Yes. Oh goodness, how many? Yes, we'll start here.
Hi. So I love the amazing collaboration that has happened with the three of you. Are you guys thinking of a project that you want to do next together? And if so, are you going to do it?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I think, and I'll be very vague, but Emma's writing, illustrating something right now, a longer form thing that's very exciting, but you know, Emma's job takes the longest, like illustrating takes so long. So Emma and I like spitballed about, no, I'm not gonna say what it is, I'm not gonna.
It's so funny though.
Should I just say what it is? Because this is not, I want us to get to us before we do
Everything else is really funny though.
Okay, you do it though.
Okay. So we were at brunch, and Kit was like, "Oh, do you ever think you want to do anything again?" And I was like, "Well, maybe. Like, it just takes so long." And then Kit went, "What about like monsters at summer camp?" And I was like, "Well, now we have to."
As long as we're kind of like spoiling it more, it would be like 1960s summer camp. There was like a boys' camp and a girls' camp on the sides of the lake. It would be very much about like a Mad Men, like very much about like you know, using monsters as a genre metaphor for race and gender and sexuality and whatnot. But
1960s monster summer camp is 40 years.
and this really working on her own thing, and it's awesome. I won't spoil that at all. But
She's working on her own thing, and Sebastian's working on his own thing.
Yeah,
And everyone's good.
if we worked so well together, it would be a dream. It would totally be a dream to work on a thing together. But I think because these things take so long, it's like writing a novel. It's like, you know, sometimes some people can like chuck out like a middle grade novel, like a romance novel, in like a year or two. But you know, some novels take like 10 years. So I like to think life is long, and we'll do something fun again. But like her job takes so long. Like and I just wish it takes 2 years.
Sorry to focus on the next thing too. We have nothing set up, but
Yeah.
we're still putting the finishing touches on the trade paperback and stuff as well. So there's
So good.
a lot of technical
features.
stuff.
Okay, can we try to do one more questions? I think
We're gonna try to do one more.
No more questions. We should admit it. I thought we could do it in a minute.
You don't have the tiniest.
Anyone has a minute question? Minute question? Yes.
First of all, I'm she's in my classroom every day. All my girls in my classroom are reading this comic. So I'm not letting this, but she's not reading. Are you ever going to do this television or film? I want to see this college.
I do too. I don't, we would love to. I don't know.
I can help. It's very much like in the mix right now. There's some cool leads. I mean, you know, like nobody knows anything is kind of the famous William Golden Hollywood expression. It's very true. But we are having some cool conversations about that right now. So yeah, I don't think it's crazy to like keep it here for an adaptation in a few years. I think maybe / yes. That was a minute. We did a minute. Yay!
Well, very quickly, I want to
We'll
ask,
hang out.
and maybe Sebastian, you can take this, but what is the best way for everyone to find QUINCE online and to perhaps purchase both the single issues digitally and the trade?
Yes, definitely. You can find us at quincecomic.com. That's QUINCECOMIC.com. We're also on Facebook as QUINCE Comic, and we're on Twitter as QUINCE Comic. You can also find us at the FANBASE Press website, but if you go to quincecomic.com, it'll link you to everything QUINCE. And on Comixology, pretty sure we're the only ones, but you can look up FANBASE Press and you'll find QUINCE Comic.
And we'll hang out like outside if anybody has questions wants to ask them.
So many of these, you guys.
I have some bookmarks in my backpack. We have things.
Well, first, I want to say thank you to Sebastian, Kit, and Emma for everything that you've done and for sharing your great process with us
Thank you,
today. I do want to let everyone know that the team will be appearing at the Geekscape booth today from 5:30 to 7 because we are releasing a limited edition copy, a print of the trade paperback, which will be coming out this October. So if you grab a postcard, it has all of the details. We'll be there from 5:30 to 7 at booth 3919 on the convention floor. But as we mentioned, we do have the trade paperback coming out. This is the cover image of the trade paperback. And it will be, for right now, we will be putting out the English version collected trade paperback. Fingers crossed, if sales go well, we will also do the Spanish language trade paperback in print as well. And the trade will be coming out this October. You can pre-order the trade paperback in FANBASE Press online store. You can either go to quincecomic.com or fanbasepress.com. And in addition, all of the postcards have the website on it if you'd like one, or we will be taking pre-orders at the Geekscape booth this evening. So just again, thank you to our panelists today, and thank you all